Hey, everybody, and welcome to Episode 7 of the SelectStart podcast. I'm your host, Brian. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Chris.
Hello.
And I just first want to, before we get started into the podcast today, I just want to say a huge thanks for everybody who supported us over on YouTube and on SoundCloud. Really blown away by the response and the community feedback that we've received, and just wanted to say thanks. So if you're listening to this and you haven't checked out either our SoundCloud or our YouTube, please feel free to go check us out. We're Work to Game, and so we're on YouTube. And anyway, I just want to take a brief part of our intro and really thank everybody out there for giving us a shot and giving us your time. Anyway, so today's main topic is going to be virtual reality versus augmented reality. It's something that I think we've all been reading about. I'm sure people out there have access to VR, and we're going to really kind of dive into which of the two technologies is either superior or not superior, or what are the hurdles. We've got a lot of opinions, so let's go ahead and select start.
Hey guys, we are super excited about the topic tonight, but first it's time to talk about what have you been playing. Last week we definitely talked about a lot of games with our guest here, but I was wondering if you'd played anything new, Brian.
Well, you bring up, obviously this is kind of the first part of the show, and I knew it was coming, which is really exciting because just personal, like we've had a lot, I guess, of family stuff going on. I'm not going to get into it on the show, but everything, turned out right, and I haven't really had access to my Xbox. So playing a lot of Pokemon on the 3DS because that, I have not been home. And so that has just been fantastic. And since we got home on Saturday, since then, obviously just jumping in and playing a little Destiny to get, because I put up a couple of videos, or I've been working on some videos regarding Destiny, getting really excited for obviously Rise of Iron. But the main kind of thing is that I started looking at just my huge collection of video games. And I go, well, without having to spend any money, like I've got years of entertainment that I can, if I sit here and I put the time in. And so I decided to kind of start working on what I call the pile of shame, that huge backlog of video games that you've maybe started, you haven't finished, but you really liked. It wasn't like, this game sucks, I'm never going to play it again. It's like, oh, this game's great. And then another great game comes out and you're like, oh, I want to play that. And then all of a sudden, it's been 6 months. You're like, man, I really want to finish it. So the game that I've returned to just these last couple of days just kind of is Shovel Knight. And it's such a good game, and what really inspired me to go play it was obviously our conversation from the last week's show about when games let us down, like Mighty Number 9 and No Man's Sky. And I was like, the opposite of that, the Kickstarter exception is Shovel Knight, and I think they did so many things so right. It feels. Have you seen the show Stranger Things yet?
No, but Nintendo said that Shovel Knight might even be in the next Smash Brothers.
That would be so awesome.
So, like, how incredible is that as a Kickstarter campaign to rise up into almighty Nintendo, who doesn't even let people YouTube?
Well, they don't let people YouTube.
That's a level yet. That's a level of immortality that's incredible.
No, so have you played Shovel Knight?
Stranger Things. I haven't. Okay. But it's intriguing.
I'm not going to ruin anything. I'm not going to ruin Stranger Things. I'm not ruining Stranger Things or Shovel Knight, but both, like if you look at what both do so well, they really play up nostalgia. So it really makes you kind of remember those things that you enjoyed, but they also bring that touch of modern to them, and so in the case of Stranger Things, it's Netflix, it's streaming, like you can really get into the show. It's produced unbelievably well. Shovel Knight, that same kind of thing. It's that the game is forgiving, it's challenging for sure, but they don't. One of the problems with nostalgia in older video games is that they will they were really kind of based off this arcade model, especially NES days where, okay, well, you die, you put more money in, you keep playing. And so it continues in lives. Those are all kind of arbitrary, but they were still in the NES days because most of those games, it just made sense to bring them from the arcade. And so there's that nostalgia for challenge and the visuals and things like that. And it hits all the right notes while at the same time bringing in modern sensibilities that everybody's come used to. If the game was just like unbelievably brutally difficult where no one could really play it, I'm sure that we wouldn't be talking about it. I'm sure it wouldn't even be getting put into Nintendo's, the rumored of their next iteration of Smash Brothers kind of part. But so that's kind of what I've been playing. Obviously, to springboard off of that, what have you been playing, Chris? Like it's been a week. We've been in contact, obviously, but what you been?
I haven't done anything even as productive as playing a game. I have just absorbed content the last week. I have watched a disgusting amount of YouTube videos. I am so glad there is not a analytics screen for the views you watch to see just how much of my time I'm dumping into other people's content. I started my free trial of HBO Now. So when I'm not watching YouTube videos by myself, my wife and I are just cranking through every show that somebody by now hasn't spoiled for us. So thank God most of my friends have had the ability to hold themselves back. So we're watching I think I've watched 3 seasons of Game of Thrones in the last week.
Oh my gosh!
And then
you've probably seen so many
John
boobs.
Oliver, and yes, so many boobs. We've watched movies we didn't even know came out. We've watched tons and tons of comedy. It's just been huge. And then, that's really it. My job, holiday weekends don't exist, so I know everybody got to enjoy kind of a long holiday weekend here in the U.S. for September. that's all it is. I know it's probably more significant than that, but I always am like, oh yeah, kids are in school, so they've been in school about 2 weeks. We should give them a 3-day weekend. That's always kind of been what that's been to me. So that's really been it. So I think I'm just excited to get to our main topic.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and do that right now. So when we come back, we're going to be diving into the VR and AR debate. And we're going to weigh in with our opinions and what excites us. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Super excited for this week's discussion. I honestly have not done the amount of research I did on some of the previous topics because I really just wanted to kind of chat with you. Here's the question. Mm-hmm. Given the choice, would you prefer augmented reality or visual reality to kind of be, I guess, perfected in a mass way into our culture first?
Absolutely. I think, so outside of just the gaming specifications of it, because it's going to be interesting to see how virtual reality and augmented reality play out. But from what Microsoft has shown off with HoloLens and what I've experienced, so 3DS tried a bit of augmented reality. Obviously, Pokemon Go uses a lot of augmented reality. Sure, it's right now you're viewing it through a device, and so HoloLens is that same kind of approach. But the practical applications of holograms is, I think, really what's going to end up being a leader outside of just gaming in general, right? So you've got medical, you've got conversations, you've got telecommuting. There's all kinds of things, and you see this at a good point. So I was watching one of your videos, Deus Ex, in one of the cutscenes, they have this group's having these meetings, and spoiler alert, it turns out at some point they're actually not even there. They're all holograms. They're all using this concept of augmented reality.
Oh, and that last guy teleported out. I was like, who is keeping that room clean? There There is literally nobody on
There's
site.
no dust on here. It's like, I'm reporting for work. I'm the one. I just keep this table completely clean where, people who teleport in or not teleport in, but
maybe the room's not even real.
Maybe
they're just hollowing into a digital space.
It was all in our imagination the whole time.
The table disappears at the end.
They just keep just taking things out of the room. It was all in the.
I hope I didn't just spoil the end of the game for myself.
Oh my gosh, that would be
so disappointed.
Awesome
the whole game's fake.
It turns out you've been just tripping on drugs the whole time. You're actually somebody set in the 1900s, and you just had this Orwell's kind of time travel. All right, that's totally getting off topic.
Okay.
So augmented reality in that regards. Now, the reason why, and I guess my main opinion of it is that at some point we're going to be having and living with augmented reality outside of using any particular device. And so that's what I'm referring to with projected holograms. Do I see that future in the next 20 years? Probably not. But in the next 50 years, more likely. And so HoloLens right now is a device that you put on your face. Pokemon Go it's on your phone. But at some point, if we see the investment in it, I think it would be very hugely beneficial where all of a sudden you install within your house in different areas these types of projections in which that you can get device-free, glasses-free holograms. And so that's my whole, taking a technology back. It's like 3D TV. Really wasn't interested in it. Why do I don't want to wear glasses. It's not something that's particularly interesting because I'm like, you have to have this device that you rely on. Holograms are way more complex than obviously 3D television with the glasses. That technology has been around since the 70s. And so for the time being, I think it's a good springboard into augmented reality. However, long term, I think it could prove that it completely is unnecessary to have this type of devices. So again, focusing outside of just games, because games comes, the game switch to virtual reality might be a lot easier, but when you're like, let's say you go to a physician or you're having some kind of surgery, right? Imagine if they could project the hologram of what you're actually happening, so the physician can have a much clearer picture. Today they probably start off with glasses, but at some point you're going to see operating rooms and various things like that.
That's the best application? Do you think that's the application that's going to make it marketable? I don't. I think it's way more likely. I do not think healthcare is what's going to be pushes it over. I think it's going to be something stupid like IKEA now has this ability where you put this device in the room and it helps you place the furniture, and then you go into an app and you say, yeah, that dresser looked great. I'll take it. Yeah. I think that is where somebody's going to make a lot more money than healthcare. That's going to be. You're going
to make if it reduces cost, if it does these kind of things. I think healthcare is just one avenue in which that becomes marketable. And where that ends up being is that you go and you put this research and you have that, and then the technology exists to do the thing like you're saying with IKEA or with anything. Heck, clothes shopping online. Imagine to be able to like, oh, let me look what that dress would look like on me. Well, yeah, no.
Adidas almost that sounds has that bad now. They have a couple. Let me see what this three-piece suit how it looks on how it would fit or look on me. And so there's thousands of practical applications for AR that I can think of. VR is no different. VR is this really wonderful escape that you have. And so personally, I have not had the opportunity to be hands-on with it, but it brings me to that kind of Star Trek moment, both in AR and VR, in which that you are experiencing this world. It becomes that sensory device that you can be fully immersed, because AR for that kind of concept isn't going to be that. One-to-one VR. That's my biggest fear is one to VR. Yes, because that's the first time I'll realize I am not ever going to be capable of being a badass. Like right now, I can be about like where you move Zelda. I can be Deus Ex. I can do all this, and I'm awesome because I push the A button. But when I start doing one-to-one VR, I'm like, well, I was going to beat the boss, but I literally got tired. I don't have the physical energy to virtually
You wonder why
take
I always
on
look
this
at like I look at my character in Final Fantasy and I'm like, you're in incredible shape, but you're running around and beating up bad guys with this giant sword. Of course, you're in perfect shape, and you don't age. So
that helps. That does help.
It's like it's a perk. But no, VR can also be. I mean, imagine like saying, "Hey, I can't afford this giant television. I can put on these VR goggles and I can be watching, and looking at in this environment like, hey, I'm watching a 70-inch television." And it doesn't all VR doesn't have to be one to one. You can still be that badass. It's just that way in which that you can be displayed and you can be immersed in that world. You look at like kind of the predecessor for it is that you kind of have the SLR 3 monitors in which that you can see more and see more of what's coming. You get more of that peripheral vision. Right now, you would have to turn your neck to see, all of it. But in AR, it's just kind of like, I look at it as it's just, VR. I look at it as a way that you can be fully immersed in the product. And there's applications that, VR conferencing and things like that. But I think between the two, there's I see a lot more practical application for AR and some game application, but I don't at this moment. I have not seen, not that it can't get there. I don't see at this moment where I'm going to sit down and I'm going to play like Halo in an augmented reality way. Maybe something will come along in the next couple years that will say, well, that's what I want. I want to have this augmented reality television. Imagine not even having to have a television anymore, where literally your television is drawn, out of augmented reality. And hopefully we can get to this devices free world. But that being said, and obviously the big carrot or the big kind of the star to all my statements is I have not been able to be hands on yet with with virtual reality. I don't have an Oculus Rift. I don't have a Vive. I do plan on getting those devices. But right now, in full disclosure, don't live in debt, kids. So we're paying off and finishing off our student loans. And then what we'll be looking at is investing in updating and refreshing our technology, which, our TV's, over 10 years old. Awesome. It still works. PC is, on its way out. But if I can get a little bit more life out of it, then all the more power. I don't want to have to, go into debt to participate in that kind of discussion. Especially because, the obvious thing is that the Oculus Rift 2 or the Vive 2 or that, they're going to keep getting better, and I can particularly wait. But I'm really excited to see what that kind of environment brings. And in fact, if anybody was like, hey, you could try the Oculus Rift at your local Best Buy, I would be there tomorrow to check it out. And the problem is that as much as I would say like, I've got that iron will, we're going to pay off this, this last loan, most likely if I got my hands on it, from what I've seen, I would be calling Julie and saying, hey.
Either that or you'd be sick. You're hearing of all these people that are like, I don't have motion sickness, but I get sick in VR.
I don't have that problem yet. And I've been, and I've experienced
I hear
VR.
You can gain it with age. That's the scariest part. Can you imagine being used to all this virtual reality stuff, and then all of a sudden they're like, we don't have the kinks worked out. So at a certain age, you're going to start getting sick. And you're like, oh God, like I'm loving this now, and it's going to get taken away from me.
So there's a kind of a timeline regarding kind of what you can expect. So I just turned 35, and they say like when you're born, everything's is how the world's always been. When you're a teenager, everything's new and exciting. By the time you start getting to around 35, things start to become like, I don't know about that. And so I want to make sure I can get in on more of this VR and AR stuff, because I would hate to miss that train. I'd hate to be sitting here going like, imagine if it made me sick. I would feel so disappointed. I don't, thankfully at this point, haven't had any problems with like motion sickness or any of that. But here's my fear about VR. So I like AR a lot. My fear of VR is that imagine, Julie, my wife, she plays Final Fantasy with us. She's, we get to participate and we get to have this experience together. We get to sit on the couch together, play video games. We get to, have that, like she might be on the couch and I might be at the PC, right? But imagine if I put on that VR headset, right? And let's say she did the same, but we're now not like, while we're still physically next to each other, now there's no visual confirmation. It might, there is this sense of separation. And even if, let's say I couldn't, obviously right now I can't afford one Oculus Rift, imagine trying to, get two for the both of us. But let's say it was just me, right? And then I'm off in this experience. I'm not present, it's like I'm now like literally in this, other virtualized world where I am not, because we've talked about the importance of family, and I will always say family before games, and especially great when you can have that, when both can come together. But there is that concern that I've had that I've actually talked with Julie about. And I was like, I'm concerned because I know my personality. What is it going to do to us as a family if I'm like, hey, babe, good to see you. All right, when's dinner? Okay, yeah, great. I'm not going to play with Maddie. I'm going to go into this ridiculously amazing escape, Anyway, that's just my
I can't wait.
Fear.
Well, I am a huge AR supporter, but it sounds like that's the direction you're leaning. So I think it's my duty to represent the other side.
Bring in the other side.
I think virtual reality is something that has been in every form of sci-fi or fantasy or video game dream for as long as I can remember. And I am very excited to now not only see, people have tried launching it before. This isn't the first go round of virtual reality. Sega tried it. But this is the first go round that's commercially
Virtual Boy
viable. And they are launching multiple platforms. You're seeing, like you said, you named two of them. Well, PlayStation's got their poor man's version that's only going to be a couple $100, and from the initial reviews I can see on it, it's only going to feel like a couple $100. But for people that aren't like, oh well, I could update my car, or I could have virtual reality for one person. Yeah, I think the PlayStation VR is a really neat idea to kind of get people in at that price point. So I am really excited to see what happens with games. My biggest fear is what genres are going to do well with it. But when you think about the ones that would, I think racing is going to be incredible. I think RPGs, just exploring the world. If you can imagine being on a world like Pandora, or like even in just World of Warcraft, if you could imagine just being totally surrounded, I think virtual reality has some of the most exciting potential to finally be the escape that games can't always be. I lived in a crappy dorm in college, and then I lived in a crappy apartment once I got out of college, and then I got my first big boy job, and they moved me to Washington, D.C., and $1 million bought me a crappy apartment there. And so it'd be pretty cool to say, yeah, I live in New York City. I have 280 square feet. I have one window. It gets crappy light. There's a street light that comes through it, so I can keep a blackout shade on it. But I've got VR, and I can escape into the same world that somebody who has this beachfront property can be in. I think that's really, really exciting, and I cannot wait to see what titles are able to take advantage of it and not just simply port it over. Like when you remember the iPad, nobody knew what to make of it as a tablet. And all they did was port iPhone apps over to it bigger, and half of them didn't even up the resolution. So it's just this junky, terrible experience. And then eventually people learned, what if we just made apps that take advantage of the size? Like what if there's games that take advantage of, 7.1 surround sound, and behind you hear the bushes rustling, and you turn, and out of your peripheral vision you're already seeing the bushes moving, and there's still stuff going on behind you, and looking in your rearview mirror in a racing game and turning to look back and it being what you're seeing in the rearview mirror. I just think there's so much exciting for some of these games. I think shooters are going to be a little dizzying, and it's the natural one to try.
That's the thing, is that I would say that with VR, like any genre will work. Now, some will work better, but even if it was a genre that wasn't specifically made for, to take full advantage of VR, you could always insert yourself into a space where the game was actually taking place. Like, let's say like a kind of a twin stick shooter, right? Geometry Wars, for example, fantastic twin stick shooter. Well, there's no reason to go and, there's like, oh, look at me. I'm like, no, the focus obviously is on this 2D kind of plane. Well, in the VR, and the way that could be ported is that you go in and all of a sudden maybe you're on this beachfront property and there's just this 100 and something inch TV, that's just beautiful and pixel perfect, and something a display and experience that you can't have, like you said, like you're in this 100 and 280 square foot apartment in New York City because that's what you can afford, so that's a great escape. And so like I think any game can fit in this concept of virtual reality. It's just a matter, like you said, like, is this a game that's going to take full advantage of it, or is this going to be something where you go and you put on these goggles and you're in this really nice space and you're playing this two-dimensional game on a virtual television, right? Imagine kicking back and watching Netflix. It's like, well, there's no reason why you can either do that here, but like I said, imagine us getting to a world where we actually don't have televisions anymore, where this completely, both AR and VR, replaces the need for having one, because you in VR and AR you can project whatever, you can have any kind of size. And so you're not then therefore restricted. But anyway, go ahead. Any other thoughts on that? Because you brought up some really good points.
I mean, I think it's exciting to think about it from a gaming perspective. They both have, Pokemon Go is the closest we have to AR in the gaming world right now, really being truly augmented. And that's if you leave the screen on, where you have to kind of hold your phone up like a dork. And
that's really cool, though. I like that.
And you're not totally a dork, because there's 27 other people doing it in the same room. And so
the dork is the person going.
The dork
like,
is
the
guy
who's like, we're playing Pokemon. You're the only person who's not.
But I think both have quite a bit of potential outside of gaming. I would love if, rather than my GPS telling me turn left in a half mile, if it would just highlight which lane I need to be in. Just show me.
Well, yeah, and you can do that through augmented reality in your car.
Augmented could do that. Yeah. Augmented could absolutely do that through a heads-up display in the windshield. They could do that. And on the VR side, imagine if you could go to a concert from anywhere.
Yes.
And be there in the concert. And you wouldn't have the smells and all of that and get to pay $10 for a Coke, but you could enjoy live music. And if something funny happens,
$10 for a Coke, and I'll come deliver it to you.
And you can turn around and you can kind of check out the crowd. And so if you had kind of these VR hubs, you could go be at like keynote speeches, you could go be at concerts, you could go, even if there was a way to set it up in somebody's house, like, oh, here's my VR hub, and you have a VR helmet. And now you can be at Christmas with my family while you're overseas.
Yeah. And no, you're absolutely right. The practical applications for both VR and AR are far beyond the reach of gaming. I think where VR is going to have the edge is that early adopters are really gamers, and there's going to be that kind of drive to fund that technology. People are interested. Sure, it didn't work in the past. That's just because something didn't work a while ago
never stopped us from spending money.
No, I know, right? But you're right. Like being able to, like, hey, I'm seeing my family, and it feels, real. Like I can't be there, but we're, and video chat's been, huge in that regard. But it's still so two-dimensional, and both AR and VR give us that ability to experience, hopefully, some more three-dimensional, kind of things. But yeah, I'm excited for both. I don't, see a world where one completely replaces the other, at least not for 100, 150 years, like from that kind of perspective. I think that we'll see continual improvement and development in both technologies, because there's just there's so many practical applications and values that once that technology can become like mass market, you're going to see, just like you said, like with apps, people are going to say, oh, we can do this now. We couldn't do this before. Let's go ahead and try to do that.
Very cool. I would love to hear what everybody else thinks. Like, what would you prefer to see first? Obviously, I think you're right. I think we're going to get both eventually. But, we're not getting any younger. You got me beat by a couple of years here, but
yes,
30 is very much staring me right in the face. And I'll lift a box or something onto the counter and like 2 days later, my back will still hurt. So I don't know that I'm going to be here for full implementation of AR and VR. So if I got to choose one first, I think I'd pick AR, but I'd love to hear what other people would pick.
So shout out to the community. What do you guys think about VR and AR, the gaming and the outside of gaming practical applications? Do you see one winning out in the short term, or do you see us, kind of just like we have right now with the continual development of both? The big news, obviously, out of this week is because of the success of Pokemon Go, Sony is aggressively pursuing AR and augmented reality games. So thankfully, I think that's a big win for everybody. There's some very interesting things going on, and I can't wait to see where it takes us. But for Chris and Brian, and for obviously Work to Game, the channel on YouTube, I really thank you guys for listening. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Subscribe, like, share with your friends. Let us know obviously what you think, what you like and what you don't like. If you're on iTunes, please give us a rating and come check us out on YouTube. And until next time, take care. SelectStart, here's my theme song. All right, whenever you're ready, Chris, lead us in.